starting point all the way that wealthy people employ these things. So you're going to gain a lot of wisdom and knowledge from this as we talk tonight about all these things. So I'm going to do a quick screen share here. I actually have a PowerPoint presentation to go with tonight. I'm going to
I
give
just
you
want to
guys
make
some
sure you're
visuals.
recording too.
Oh yeah, thank you. Where's that at? Can you do that on your end, hon?
I've got it. Okay.
Okay, cool. Yeah, if you want to do that, that'd be great. So, why aren't we succeeding with money? Let's get into this tonight a little bit. Little quick disclaimer since we're talking more money, this is an educational purpose only presentation. We're not financial advisors, tax professionals, legal professionals. So, none of the information covered today should be taken as financial, tax, or legal advice. Sharing information on the following slides is not a solicitation to invest. We are financial practitioners and wealth strategists who help you align your money with your values, beliefs, your vision, your purpose, those things, and so that you can be using money more as a tool to really make an impact in the world and do things that are more aligned. So it's the alignment that we specialize in with not just doing something with our money because it's what the world says, but really making sure that we understand who we are at a deep level and we're doing with our money things that are in alignment with that. And that's one of the distinguishing factors that we really focus on. So now that that's out of the way, one of our mentors, we talked about this a couple weeks ago. My wife and I have studied with Dr. Sue Morter the last number of years. I've studied with, well, we both studied with her dad and two brothers since 2011 in bioenergetic synchronization technique. That is a whole healing modality and really health system. And it's also about, what would you say, honey, embodiment practices. And it's really spiritual development as well and personal development. It's kind of all under one wrapper. And Dr. Sue's just been one of those leading mentors for us that's just always seems like one step ahead and just pulling new information in that just speaks to your core. And this is a quote she said several years ago from some trainings that we were in. It's not about material wealth. It's about the materialization of your wealth, right? So it's not just about we're talking about money because we want the house or we want the private jet or we want the car, the purse or the shoes or the jewelry. It's not about the materialization, right? It's not this, oh, I gotta have it. It's more about coming from a place of inner abundance. And once we have this inner wealth, the materialization starts to show up in our life, not because we're going after the stuff, but because that's a byproduct of when we do the inner work. So they go hand in hand. And that's what we're going to talk about more tonight. So to achieve outer wealth, we must create it first on the inside through our beliefs and what Dr. Sue calls our circuitry. So this is brain wiring. This is the things in our head, right? The thought patterns, the subconscious, all these things you may have heard. Maybe this is some new information for you guys. But this is really what it comes down to because, you know, how many of you, I didn't have time to decorate this. I had these thoughts pop in. I added this in on my way home earlier. How many of you in your financial journey, this could be you today, it could be, you at any point in your life, you thought, if I could just make more money, it would solve my problems, right? Show of hands, is that a thought that's popped in your head at any time, or give me a thumbs up in the chat, like, yeah, I've thought that before, that if I could just make more money, things would start to fall in place. I've been there, right? You think if I could just make an extra $1,000, that would just solve all my problems. And what's interesting about that is it's not necessarily wrong. You're not wrong, but how we get to the place of having another $1,000 coming into our life is by doing inner work, right? We can't force money to come into our life. We can't usually willpower it. Sometimes we can, and oftentimes that shifts things so far out of balance, something else in our life goes awry, right? Our relationships suffer, our health suffers because we're trying to force money to come into our life, right? It takes so much power to make it happen. And you can do that. There's a lot of billionaires that do that, but they die of cancer because they've shifted things so far out of balance. So it's more about coming from this internal power, this alignment, so that money can come in. And so some other thoughts that you may have had. Have you ever thought, or wondered this, if money just came in, it would solve my problems. But there's this idea that if we distributed money evenly, if we put all the money in the universe in a pile and distribute it evenly to everybody on the planet, that within a number of years, that the already have a lot of money would have the money back, and the people that don't know how to keep and hold money would not have money in a few years. They would figure out ways to let it get out of their hands. The people that know how to make money would accumulate it all back. So there's this notion here that we have to do something different, right? It's not that if we just had a windfall, it would solve our problems. If money would just come to us, we'd just be able to breathe a sigh of relief. We have to look internally and figure out, why am I at a place, who I am today? Why am I not having money come into my life? That's something we're going to look at. And maybe you guys have heard this statistic that I think it's 70% of all lottery winners are broke and bankrupt within, I think, 3 to 5 years, something like that. That might not be the exact stat, but you get the point. That even people that win six, seven, eight, nine figures figure out a way to blow it because they didn't have the beliefs, the habits, the embodiment, all those internal components that allows them to handle the money. And it's also an education about what to do with the money, right? You can think, oh, I've got this windfall. I'm going to go buy a house. I'm going to go buy the Lamborghini. I'm going to go buy a yacht. Well, those aren't wealth moves necessarily, right? Those are generally more consumer moves. I'm going to go buy stuff because I can afford it versus putting my money to work. There's difference in mindset, consciousness around money. So some of it is the beliefs, the habits, the inner work, and then part of it is the framework of when we actually get money into our life, what do we do with it so we retain it, so we don't lose it, so that we put it to work, so that we are more efficient with that money. These are some of the things we're going to get into tonight because they go so hand in hand. The longer I do this, I've been in the financial services industry for about 8 years, my wife and I have. And the longer I do it, the more I see the importance of you have to do inner work and you have to have financial strategy. You can't just isolate one over the other. If you have really good financial strategies, people that haven't done their inner work are going to screw up a really good financial strategy. It's just going to happen. And the people that have done their inner work sometimes aren't succeeding because they don't have a good financial strategy. And when you marry the two, it's this beautiful synergistic effect that can take place that can take people to another level when they're trying to elevate themselves and around money and wealth and creating more freedom in their life and having more control over the decisions that they do. One of our mentors, Garrett Gunderson, he talks about financial freedom is the point you get to when money is no longer the decision of why or why not I should do this. It's not because, well, I don't have the money, so it's definitely a no. Financial freedom is when the point is it's, well, does it fit for the family? Do I have time for this? It's not, can I afford this? Do I have the money? That's financial freedom. And many of you are on that path of how do I bring that into my life? And we're going to get into that. This is the two kind of elements that get you there. So, so I want to do a quick grounding exercise. Maybe, honey, I'll have you lead us through the grounding exercise here in a minute if you want to do some like central channel with us for a second. Um, but as I was preparing for this, I know many of you ladies on the call, you're probably like, oh, a football analogy, really, Jeff? Come on. But how many of us, if you maybe you watch sports or you've played sports, and you're like, you've done that dumb thing where the ball's coming and you're in your head too much and you drop the ball, right? This is a quick clip,
Right, but they said, I thought this was just an easy
wide open
touchdown.
touchdown. He drops the ball, right? Like hits his hands. He pays millions of dollars. And I'm a Tom Brady fan. This was back when the Buccaneers had Tom Brady, and it was a perfect throw, hit him in the hands. And how many of us have been in our businesses, our life, where we know what to do and we're just in our head and we screw it up, right? That happens to all of us. So part of what we wanted to start tonight with is getting a little more grounded. We've all heard the expression, get out of your head, right? You're in your head. What have you ever thought about like when you're in your head, you're like your awareness, your consciousness is actually literally up here, it's shifted up in your body. And for us to be able to be more in flow, we need to be more grounded, more centered, um, into our body. Actually, our awareness needs to come down into our body. So let's start with that. Honey, I'm going to have you just do, 30 seconds or a minute or so of this. This, I think, will help all of you just come in. We're at the end of the day, come in. We can be a little bit maybe in our head from stress, maybe rushing to get on the call. Let's ground. This is going to help us absorb information. It's going to help us make more permanent shifts in our life and just help you in general. So, honey, if you want to lead this, and then we'll jump into the information that we want to share tonight.
Absolutely. Okay, everyone put everything down and just close your eyes. And we're just going to do a little bit of breathing. So if you guys can go ahead, put the pencils down, put the paper away for the moment. And we're just going to close our eyes and bring our awareness into our bodies because that is where the power lies, is bringing all the knowledge that we have and bringing it into our bodies. So if you think about the heavens, way up into the heavens, where God's at, and just breathing in that love and that light of God and bringing it through the top of your head, down through your mind, down through your throat and into your heart, and just hold it into your heart. Let that love just be there for a moment, letting all the thoughts just kind of wander away as we close out the day. Some of us, depending on where you're at, so many things can run through our mind throughout a day. So just letting those things fall away as we just feel that love encompass our hearts. And then breathing that out into the ground and just letting all the tension, all the thoughts, all the wandering mind just go into the ground. Just let it dissolve into the ground, let it come off of our shoulders, out of our minds, and just really ground ourselves into the ground. And some people might like to really think about like some roots coming out of your feet and literally just planting you into the earth like a tree. Strong, steady, unswayable, grounded into the earth and stable. And then think about all that love from the earth just coming back up, breathing that into our hearts. And then letting go of everything that is no longer needed here, just up through the top of our head and just giving it all up to God and saying, okay, you take this for now. If it needs to come back, it will come back when needed. And just breathe through that for a minute. Just up and down through that central channel. Letting that tension fall away from our bodies, out of our shoulders. Relax your shoulders. Recognize your breathing. Where are you breathing from? Are you breathing from your chest, lifting your shoulders and dropping them? Or are you breathing from your belly, from your diaphragm in a deep belly breath, which calms our nervous system? If we're breathing from the upper part of our body in our shoulders, bringing our shoulders up to our ears, you're actually bringing the parasympathetic or the sympathetic into action. So we want to drop those shoulders, breathe from our belly, big belly breaths, and just allow that parasympathetic to calm the nervous system, bring us into present time, let go of all the things that we need to do or the things that are in our mind, pulling us, pulling our attention, pulling our awareness, pulling our presence, and just letting it fall away. Beautiful. Okay. So now as we do that and we calm our nervous system down, that allows us to be fully present with ourselves and with whatever we are being presented. So that allows the information to absorb easier. So I'll go ahead and pass it over to you, honey.
Cool. Thank you, babe. So how many of you feel a little more grounded, a little more less in your head, more in your body? Good, 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 good. Glad to see that. Great. And this is, something that if you guys are new to that technique, that's something you guys can do, at will.
Yep.
If you need trainings on that, we can certainly do modules in there. I'm not sure if there's already modules in the course for that kind of stuff, but those are great exercises to get back in your body. We're going to talk a little bit more about that tonight. And then on the uh, second Wednesday call of the month, when we talk more about wealth energetics and the inner work, we'll probably do more of that as well over there. So let's jump into talking a little bit more about money tonight and how what we do is a little different and really kind of set the framework for giving you guys a good context of like from where you're at, what's important to work on, and in what order do we do things, all that's going to be helpful. So when you look at financial services, whether this is financial advisors, this could be insurance specialists, there's a lot of different people that obviously help you with managing your money and doing different things. Most of those people and the people that I've met in the industry, that I know myself, most of them are product problem focused, right? So, oh, you need to grow your money, you need a 401k. Oh, you need term life insurance, protect your family, you need, some some protection, term life insurance. I'm going to sell you this product, right? It's product level thought process, right? It's a mutual fund, it's a Roth IRA. That's what they're selling you. You go talk to them, they're pitching you usually a product and they put you in it and you're on your way, right? That's what the majority of what you get out there is. Even the Dave Ramsey's out there, it's product level problems. It's you need money in your 401k, you need to invest, and you need term life insurance, right? That's his framework of everything. Above that, and this is what we've been trained in, is more strategy level problems where yes, you can use products, but how did those different tools in the financial world intermingle? How do they play together? How do they support each other or do they work against each other? How does my life insurance work with or against my investments, right? Are they complementary or are they not? Most advisors don't talk about that. Most don't even get into that. Um, is my strategy of scrimp every penny for 40 years? And then trying to pack every money into my investments and be a millionaire by the time I'm 65? Is that in alignment with me and what I want my life to look like? Or am I more abundance minded? Do I want to enjoy the fruits of my labor now? And how can I live now in abundance and not screw myself come retirement, right? These are strategy problems, strategy level things of how can I live an abundant life now in an intelligent, responsible way, because I may have children, I may have a business, I may have people that I'm responsible for. I need to be able to, honor that. So that's strategy level problems that most advisors don't get into of how do these things work. But as we've already set the foundation for tonight, above strategy problems, what if we come and, when I'm working with somebody, I can see like, ooh, their mindset and their beliefs are a little lacking, right? They need some with that. Maybe they just don't they're not thinking big. Maybe they, have self-limiting beliefs. They don't believe in themselves. Maybe they're afraid of failure because they failed once when they were younger and they just don't want to fail again. Those are belief problems. So those beliefs, that mindset can interfere with and screw up a good strategy and good tools, good products in the financial world. So when we're working with somebody, if we just go to the financial advisor and he puts us into a product, the product lacks a strategy more likely than not, and it also doesn't address where the person's at that moment and where are they holding themselves back? Where are they getting in their own way? Where do they need to improve their mindset? Where do they need to change their beliefs so that what they're doing with their money is congruent and alignment with who they are as a core person and where they want to go, the type of life they want to live. That's a lot of times missing in the financial discussion out there, right? Now, to take this another step deeper, we can have mindset things, we can have belief issues, and we talked about this a couple weeks ago. So if you guys were on a couple weeks ago, you kind of know what we're talking about here is those patterns are stored in our nervous system. The traumas that we have, the patterns that we observe from our parents growing up, as we became an adult, the decisions that we made, and some that weren't very good, and the failures that we had, all these things get wired into our brain and keep us from excelling and succeeding at the level that we want. So to change mindset, to change beliefs, you can do it through reading books and doing meditations and all these things can work. To get really to it a whole lot more efficiently is to do it at the nervous system level and really doing it not just the brain, but also the electromagnetic field around the body as part of that nervous system and what dictates how we operate in our life and also what we draw into our life because we are literally a magnetic being. And if we don't clear that junk and that gunk, we're going to have a hard time thinking positive and thinking abundant thoughts and then behaving and acting in a way that is going to create the life that we want and actually execute on financial strategies and do the things that we need to when money is coming in. And then lastly is an alignment and embodiment problem. And this is something that I've done a lot of deep work at my agency, Life 180. They've done an aligned wealth workshop we're going to be at here next week. And it's really about alignment is really ultimately where it comes down to. And understanding who we are, what is our calling, what is that duty that we have that we know we're here for, in making sure that we're making financial decisions and that our strategy and our mindset, our beliefs, and the products that we use in finance are in alignment with who we are, where we're going, the calling that we feel like we have, and living from a place of empowerment and embodying all of that. That's really the in what we do more the foundation, right? Down here at the bottom. This is where we really start. We need to make sure that we're working on alignment, getting more and more in alignment and figuring out these things. It's not something we just do on a weekend and we're done for life, right? This is an ongoing journey of discovering who we are, re-remembering who we are, why we're here, why we're showing up, why we're going through the struggles we're going through, why we're learning the lessons that we're here to learn. That's really foundational and beginning to embody that. And then addressing the nervous system and where are some areas we need to heal? Where are some of the things from, the things we've experienced in our life? Where do we need to clean those up a little bit and release some of that stuff? There's a lot of techniques that we talk about on the second Wednesday call. We'll be focused more on that stuff. Mindset belief. Obviously, we can read books and be around successful people, and there's a lot of ways that we can be influenced through our outer world that can help us change our mindset and our beliefs. Probably in the coming few weeks, I'm going to talk a lot more about mindset and beliefs and some ways that we can shift those things. There's kind of a flow of that we go through. It's kind of called like the belief loop of how to change that stuff. I know there's some good content in the coursework as well that you guys can talk or can watch and go through. But we're going to talk more about that probably in the coming weeks on the second Wednesday call of how do we shift that stuff because that's great. Oh, I'm sorry to hear that, Lisa. I hope everything's okay. Um, and then strategy. Once we get the alignment and we clean some things up, we start shifting our mindset, then we can be really figuring out what's the strategy that aligns with all that. And then the cherry on the top is just what products make all that stuff work, right? Then it becomes very obvious. Oh, based on who you are, what you're trying to accomplish in your life, where you're at, the season of your life, all those different things, then we can figure out, okay, it's very obvious you need XYZ product or maybe multiple of them because they're going to work well together to help you accomplish what you're looking for. So we do things a lot differently. We're not just trying to like, oh, we sell mutual funds, so we're going to put everybody in a mutual fund, or oh, we sell whole life, so everybody gets whole life. No, no, no. We want to do a deeper dive with this and really make sure that clients are uncovering and discovering a deeper part of themselves that a lot of times they're longing to uncover. And then we can figure out the financial part, right? We can get all that stuff figured out. It's an ongoing process that we walk people through. So that's a little bit about what we do on the financial side that's different and how it blends together what we do with inner work and our mindset and embodiment practices that we talked about a couple weeks ago. And we'll obviously continue to be talking about on that second Wednesday call. So from that, where do we start on that? I'm gonna just end here kind of on the inner work, and we're gonna jump into some financial stuff specifically, and then we'll probably open it up to field some thoughts and questions that you guys might have. Anything we can help you with where you're at right now in the course, or just in life and money. Happy to, answer some things on the fly with that. So based on the inner work aspect, we were, of the alignment and embodiment. Where do we start, right? Because I know last couple weeks ago we talked about, a lot of you are this kind of new. A lot of this information is brand new. You've never really been exposed to a lot of this before. So it's like, where do I start? It sounds really good. I need this probably. How do I get this really functioning in my life? These are kind of like step one. These are kind of some of the basics that we want to get down and even if you are already pretty successful, it's good to revisit these. We revisit these, fairly often of like, we're in a new place in life right now. We've had successes, we've learned lessons. Let's revisit what don't I like right now in my life. I think my wife and I right now are going through quite a bit of that of what don't we like right now in our life? What do we want this to look like? And in going through that evolution. So really a good question to ask yourself before you can really dial in on what is it I want my life to look like is what don't you like about your current situation? What is causing frustrations? What is causing interference? What is showing up in your life as symptoms? This could be in your body, it could be your mental state, it could be in your relationships, it could be money. What is it in your life you don't like? And clearly defining that, being willing to look at it and go, this is what's going on. This is the reality of it. I don't like it. But first step is just facing what is, right? And so then what do you want changed in your life? and then clearly defining what it is that you do want. I can remember years ago, I was in Kalamazoo, Michigan, doing a presentation for a group, and I can remember talking about some of these goal setting topics. And there was a lady in the audience, and we were talking about, how to set goals. And, I think I asked, does anybody here want to share what a goal is? And she's like, oh, I don't want cancer. I'm like, oh, interesting. You don't want cancer. That's an interesting goal. And the way the brain works, and you guys can maybe do this exercise. Don't think about a pink elephant. Don't think about it. Like what pops in your mind, right? A mental picture of a pink elephant. Like how did I do that? Like I'm not Houdini, right? I'm not Jeff Houdini. It's just the way the brain works. So if we think not cancer, like the lady years ago said, what's popping up in her mind? Cancer. The brain doesn't register the not. And I can remember years ago before my wife and I met, I had a relationship, and I can remember doing this exact practice of like, okay, this is what I didn't like about the last relationship. I need to flip this 180 degrees, define what it is that I do want. Like, what's the opposite of what I had in a positive sense moving forward? Like, I can't remember even some of the examples. It's been 15 years since we were together, but that relationship, there's a lot of frustrating things, right? So you're like, okay, I don't want to feel that anymore. So what's the opposite of frustration? Peace, joy, right? So like this lady in Kalamazoo, Michigan, like her goal of not having cancer should be shifted to, I want to be healthy. I want to live a long time. I want to feel vibrant. I want to have energy. I want to have vitality. Like that's the true like focal point of what your goal should be, not cancer, because that's going to probably put your focus and emphasis on cancer. And not getting cancer, there's probably fear wrapped in that, right? There's resistance wrapped in that. And there's a lot of evidence that suggests that what we focus on, we do create in our life. And there is the psychosomatic element of the power of our brain can create things in our life. So I encourage you, this is kind of step one is figuring out what you don't want in your life, what you don't like, and then what is it that you do want? And that will help you get started in this process if you're brand new to this. And again, as we go along, there'll be more modules in the coursework. We'll be doing more content on these calls to go into this stuff. But just kind of get your feet wet, some of that stuff. So let's talk a little bit now, shift the gears into finances. Maybe before I do, honey, you got any thoughts or things you want to chime in here before I jump into talking more money stuff?
Yeah, I think that's a really good start to or place to start is just really focusing on. And the other thing I wanted to talk about is, we're talking about wealth, we're talking about money, but what does wealth actually mean to you? That's another thing maybe you want to define because wealth doesn't necessarily correlate to money. It can, but wealth is all encompassing. So when we think about wealth, is it that you want to have vibrancy in your life? You want to be healthy. You want to have, vibrant relationships and community and friendships. There's wealth encompasses so many things. So sometimes we get really like narrowly focused on like, oh, wealth equals money. Well, it doesn't have to, and every single person defines that differently. So that might be somewhere to start too, is what does wealth mean to me? Like, what is wealth to me? Because it'll be different for every single person. And that's where it gets individualized is what is it to you? What does that mean to you? And then that breeds into what he was talking about, like, okay, what is going on in your life that you're kind of like, oh, I could do without this. This is not exactly what I want. And then switching that because that is very true. Like what we focus on, we will get. And so if we are focusing on not having cancer, like he said, it doesn't matter what you do. If you're focused on cancer, that's what you're focused on. So if you're focused on health and vibrancy and vitality, that's very drastically different than cancer. And so that's just being very aware of like what you're focusing on, what you're putting your attention towards. And then another piece that I wanted to throw in there was just like what really defining like why do you want those things? Because the why is really what backs what we're doing, right? Why do we want to have the wealth? Is it because you want to be able to pay for supplements, or you want to be able to pay for red light therapy, or you want to be able to pay for whatever it is that will give you the health and vibrancy that you want? Or do you want money because then I can pay for private school for my kids, or I can pay for travel so they can experience the world, or I can pay for, community and, whatever it is. It's really defining what that why behind it is as well. That's really important to be able to really like hone in what is it that we want and why do we really want that? Because that's what's really going to give you your power and back it. When you go back to your why, that's what's going to help keeping you move forward when you have quote unquote failures, or you have those things that pop up that you go, I don't know if I can do this. Oh, I don't know that that's, like our beliefs or our limitations kind of to creep in. And so those are all just a little bit of things that I think would be very helpful as well when you're going through and thinking through, like, what do I actually want? Take it maybe a step further, and why do I want those things? Because that's really what's going to propel you forward when you are coming up against those blocks or you're coming up against that resistance. And if you have that why in the back of your mind or plastered on the wall in front of you, maybe even better, is why do I want this? Oh, yes, this is why. My family is my why, or my XYZ is my why. And so it gives you that motivation again of like, this is why I'm doing it. It's getting hard. And now I can look at this and go, that's why I'm doing this. Now I'm reminding myself, now I'm ready to go.
Great
So,
thoughts. Thank you, honey. So when we talk about money specifically, let's jump into kind of from the inner work aspect into some like financial strategies and structures and frameworks that I think will really help you as you get going with this program with money moves and if you're at the beginner level. And just as you're, depending on where you're at in your financial life, if you're already making some money and you're just trying to add some extra streams of income, or you're starting at ground zero and you need a lot of help, or you're already making 10 grand a month, right? We talk to a lot of 6 and 7 figure earners that need a lot of financial help, right? They are still living paycheck to paycheck. We call that the affluent poor. So we can have the need for understanding a deeper level of financial literacy and wealth literacy no matter where we're at. So this, I think, is going to speak to all of you, depending on where you're at, and you're all going to be able to go, oh, I'm there, and that's good to take me to the next step. That's going to really, feed into everybody tonight. So in my years of doing this, being in the financial services industry, I think these three areas are the things that I hear most from clients and the order that they do them. And much like our food pyramid that recently has been revised, that actually makes a little more like biological and nutritional sense. Up until then, we've had kind of an inverted pyramid. And I see this a lot in finance, that the things that we're doing first are the most risky. And the things that we're doing first are the thing that's going to give us the highest potential for things not going well because we don't have a solid foundation. So when I'm talking to clients every week, the thing that most everybody's doing is they're investing. And I'm not saying any of these things are wrong. I'm just going to give you some clarity on the thought process that goes into this. And I learned a long time ago when I had acne really bad that I can't always take what the professionals tell me because the professionals don't always know everything. And there are people out there that know things beyond what the person with a doctorate degree knows, right? Because when I read natural cures they don't want you to know about, and I healed 6 years of cystic acne in 2 weeks with a whole body and colon cleanse because I understood the body is doing this for a reason. It's not bad luck. It's not God punishing me. It's not genetics. It's because I ate way too much carbs, too much sugar, too much dairy, and my body's internal systems couldn't handle the load. And the skin is the like backup organ to detox. So there was too much gunk on the inside, and my skin was carrying the burden. And I assisted the internal organs, the liver, the kidneys, the gallbladder, all these things. I flushed out the toxins, and my skin's like, thank you. I don't have to do the work anymore. Look, I'm no more redness, no more pimples. Amazing, right? So the same thing happens in finance. The gurus out there will tell us invest first, put money in your 401k. And it's again, this isn't bad. It's not, I'm saying don't do that. It's just, is that really step one we should be doing? Do we have our financial house in order? Because investing first is one of the highest risk things we can do financially. So we need to understand that and understand that we're making sure that we're handling less risky aspects first and then investing at the right time when we have other things in place. So most people I talk to, yep, they're investing, which is good. It's good they're thinking about the future. They're taking advantage of compounding interest. It's an excellent thing to be doing. So that's step one that I see a lot of people doing. And then being debt free, like that's the focus is like all debt is bad. Let's kill all debt. We don't want any debt. It's all bad. And not distinguishing between really there's multiple types of debt. There's consumer debt, there's destructive debts, there's productive debts, and there's protective debts. There's a lot of different types of debt. And we can't like paint them all looking at the same way, right? They can't all be bad debt. There's sometimes debt makes a whole lot of sense. Debt can make us wealthier. Debt can propel our situation. Debt can get us into a business or start doing things to be making more money than we could without it. Now, can it also be a major problem? 100%. And that goes back to the inner work, right? Debt is not good or bad necessarily. It's who we are and how we handle it, our beliefs, our mindset, our habits. It's like the lottery winner, right? They can't handle the money. Well, some people can't handle the debt. And it's not that the debt is necessarily bad, they just used it incorrectly and didn't have other financial structures in place to do it. And then lastly, it's diversification, right? We hear this all the time, diversify, diversify, diversify. And what I find most often is people are diversified mostly in the same type of investments, right? They think diversification is having Apple, Caterpillar, John Deere, Microsoft, like all these different stocks, and they're diversified. It's like, no, that's all the same kind of, it's not stock diversification necessarily. It's also asset class. Maybe you should have some real estate. Maybe you should have some whole life. Maybe you should do different things, right? There's different ways to diversify. So these are just observations of 8 years of doing this. And again, not, necessarily right or wrong. These are just observations. I think a lot of the invest first is you don't want to miss out on the compounding, like I mentioned. That's, I think, more coming from a fear-based mindset because we're told that if we don't do this, we're going to be short millions of dollars in retirement. So we're like, well, I got to start putting money away. Well, is that really step one? We're going to start talking about this as we move along. I already mentioned about, all debt is bad and then spreading out risk because that's what the savvy investors do. That's what we're told, right? Warren Buffett, he diversifies, so we should too. Well, not necessarily wrong or right. Are we at the stage where we need to diversify? Are we need to do that step one, or is that step 10, right? And it's not like everybody, it's this, it's for you. And once you've done more of your inner work and you found the alignment of this is who I am, this is what I'm creating in my life, this is who I'm serving, this is what I want my life to look like, this is what I want my finances to look like, this is how much I want in my bank account, this is how much I want to spend per month. I want to spend 10 grand a month and I want 100,000 in the bank, right? That's what I want my life to look like. And I want my health to be where I exercise an hour a day and I feel vibrant and I'm flexible and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, right? And this is what I want my relationships to look like. I want to be on dates every single week with my spouse. I want to spend an hour a week with each child, right? Doing quality time. I want to be investing in them. I want to be working 40 hours or less per week in what I'm doing. I want to have time freedom. It's what I want my life to look like. When you know those things, then we can get to the money strategies and the products and figure out what stocks should you be diversified in. That comes then, right? That's that stage. We want to do things in the right order that are going to really create a good, long, successful place. So building a house on solid rock, not on sand. And because we see a lot of the investing first, it's not really on rock. Starting out on sand. So this is something that our agency uses, Life 180. I've modified it a little bit just to kind of fit some of the things that we do specifically. But really step one, and this is what we take pretty much every client through when we're working with them on the financial side. Not every client wants to dig into the inner work and all that stuff. Some people are like, just help me with money, Jeff. Like, okay, we'll do that. So this is where we start with them. Making sure financial safety is taken into account. And really, there's really one more rung below that is like, we need to just make sure there's enough income coming in to pay our bills, right? That's kind of step one. And that's what some of you in this course are trying to do. Like, I haven't been great with money. Haven't been great with money for a while. I need to change that. That's why you're in this course. You're learning the skills of digital marketing and what it takes to show up consistently and get people to buy and have affiliates and doing all the things that you can do throughout this course comes from a need to get your income figured out, right? And this is something that Grant Cardone, I don't know if you guys know who Grant Cardone is. He's a big time real estate guy and big into personal growth and things like that. Um, One of the things that I like that he says is a lot of people don't have a debt problem like Dave Ramsey says. They actually have an income problem. They're not making enough money. I said in the very beginning, like, we think money's going to fix our problem. And it's yes, it can, but it's also we have to do the inner work to hold that money, right? It's kind of a both and, which is a Dr. Seuism. We kind of have to do both. We do have to make more money sometimes. We actually have to do that because we're just not physically generating enough to pay the bills. We got to do that. So that's really step one. So if you haven't figured that part out yet, that's where you need to focus, right? If you're like, well, should I invest, Jeff? Well, if you're not making enough income yet, that's where you focus. It's all hands on deck. What do I need to do to get my income where I need it? And within that, do you know how much you need? Do you know what your expenses are? And where can you get more efficient with what is going out? Are there ways you can trim the fat, right? I'll be completely transparent. Right now, we've moved in with my wife's mom to trim the fat a little bit. And what we're doing is we're kind of pulling back and reloading to do some different things, right? And to help her mom out with some health challenges, right? We're kind of doing that. It just made sense for this short period of time to help us kind of get over a hump, right? We're not perfect just because we know all this stuff and do all this stuff. We still do these things, right? That this is an ongoing process for even us. We've been doing a lot of these things for a decade and a half, and it's an ongoing evolution. You're always refining, 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 and you'll go through seasons where like, man, I got ahead of myself. I need to pull back a little bit, reload so I can keep going. And that's kind of where we're at. So there's no shame in like, hey, I got to do some things. I got to take some responsibility for where I'm at. I need to say, you know what? It's okay. I'm going to pull back, and we're going to really take off after this. Like that is a lot of super successful people, if you tracked, like graphed out their income and you saw like their income doing nothing, 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 and all of a sudden it spiked, and you're like, well, what was it that like spiked your income? Oh, things got really bad and really ugly and really painful, and I made a freaking decision to like get stuff in order and pull back and, move in with my mother-in-law or whatever the thing is. And right after that, things took off, right? And you're like, well, I want more of those things then, And then when you realize that, oh, those things are really uncomfortable and really pull a lot out of you, you might be like, maybe I'm good. Maybe I don't want that right now, and that's okay. It's part of the process of just going through that. So that's really number one. That's not even on here of making sure income's where it needs to be. And then if it is, then let's make sure that we have the basics. This is the kind of the Dave Ramsey level, right? Savings account, emergency fund. Do we have a month of living expenses in a liquid bank account? So if something happens, water heater goes out, transmission blows in the car, whatever, you got money to pay for it. You're not swiping a credit card and getting further in debt because you didn't have the cash, right? If you're not at the level of that, start there. If the income part's taken care of, but you're still paycheck to paycheck, then we got to get more efficient, trim some fat, and start getting so there's excess every month. And that might mean, hey, I need to make an extra $100 a month or $500 a month doing digital marketing. Great. Now you know you're focused. Let's go. Let's get excited. Let's roll, baby. That's what you can do. And then getting that emergency fund built up. Dave Ramsey says 3 to 6 months. Our agency, we usually teach 12 to 24 months is really a good place to get. And once there's that type of extra put away, there's a lot of things you can do long before you even get to 12 months that can make that money more efficient and doing a lot of other things that are accomplishing some of these higher up rungs on the pyramid here. And then insurance protections are really the safety aspect. So what do I mean by insurance protections, right? Well, do you have a home you rent or own? Well, do you have insurance coverage for that? If something happens to the home, tree falls on it, it burns down, floods, like, do you have basic insurances? Do you have insurance on your car? I can remember when I was, like out of high school and figuring out the whole insurance thing. I remember my dad telling me when I was asking him about like, should I just do like the basic PLPD or should I get full insurance on my car? And he's like, well, do you have money to buy a new car if you crash it tomorrow? And I'm like, nope. He's like, then full insurance it is. I'm like, okay, that makes sense, right? If I don't have the money for a new car, I need to have it insured so that if something happens to my car, I can get a new car and keep driving and keep getting to work and keep doing the things I need to do, right? So the basic protections. One of the most overlooked ones, I did a presentation for a group in a network marketing company last week, talking about the importance of our human life value. And we'll probably talk about this at some point with this group. Our human life value is our ability to generate an income and generate wealth. And so that's where like life insurance comes in. Is your ability to produce income, are you protecting your family? If yesterday on the way to work you were hit by a bus and gone, not a fun topic to bring up, I get it. But it's reality. Are you protected? Are you leaving your kids or your spouse hanging and kind of screwed if you don't have insurance protections, right? So these are the basic kind of low-lying things that we want to make sure that we're protected, you know? And then from there, and see, here's what this does energetically and emotionally and mentally. When we know that if worst case happened, we're okay, as good as you're going to be, even though, you know, if it's like life insurance, you're not here. Obviously, nothing brings you back, but at least you know you're not leaving your family hanging. That gives you confidence. If I know that we've had a lot of severe weather here in Michigan where we live, it's springtime, right? There's tornadoes. You know, like if a tree fell on your house or on your car, and you know, like, hey, I've got insurance that is going to be able to repair that or buy or build a new one. Like that's just peace of mind, right? You can show up in your life differently when you have peace of mind versus like, oh man, like if something happened, I'm screwed. That's like a low grade worry at the back of your mind that just eats away at you a little bit and limits you to some degree how you're showing up in your life. So having those things is really, yes, there's the financial part of it that makes sense, but it's also, I need to have those things so that I can almost like go, you know what? If it's God's timing for my car, my house, or me to go, I've got as good a protection as I can on planet Earth, and I'm just going to go out and live my life to the fullest, right? And be all in on my mission and helping people, serving people, whatever it is. It allows you to show up differently by having those things. So there's really, again, the inner work part of it and the financial part of why we say a lot of these things. So the next rung up, financial efficiency. This is reducing debt and paying off debt. A lot of people that I talk to, they're paying 20, 25% interest on credit cards, but trying to get ahead by investing in the stock market that's getting them 10% on average, right? So you're like kind of behind, you know, like if I'm trying to pay off 20%, but I'm only making 10%. And I know the last few years in the markets have been pretty good, depending on what you're invested in. You're at the 15 to 25% range, which is really good. But usually our debt is such an anchor. Like most people mentally and emotionally, if they have debt, it's really hard for them to overcome that, like energetically. It's a huge weight. When you know that you're super in debt, that limits how you show up in life. It limits how you get up in the morning, the energy that you have, your willingness to do whatever it takes, right? To go all in. You're like, yeah, but I've got $10,000 in debt. I can't go all in. I'm really worried and stressed about it. Well, what can we do to do that? Sometimes it makes sense to, again, this would be an individualized discussion, but really take a look at if I'm investing, but I have credit card debt, am I really making the most sense of where those dollars are flowing? Should I maybe for a short period of time go all in on knocking my debt down? Because it's not only going to free me up financially in cash flow month to month, but I'm going to feel so much better. You know, when I work with people, and there's been some people that I've worked with in the last year that they have on paper the ability to be debt free like that. But in their mind, they're so fixated into, but I have to invest and I have to do it this way, the way the guru said, or the way that, you know, my brother-in-law taught me to do it, or just the way that the world tells you have to do things. But you've got money tax-free sitting in a Roth account that you could be debt-free tomorrow. And they're like, oh my gosh, I never saw that. Never thought of that. And they felt amazing because they're debt-free in an instant, right? And I'm not suggesting you go do that. It takes individualized counsel to make sure that you are doing the right thing. But sometimes we just need to look at things differently and really ask the question, should I be doing this? What's the pros and cons here? Those are things that we need to think about. But just focusing on reducing debt. And even if it means an extra $100 a month, sometimes getting in the flow of paying off debt helps free you up so much emotionally and energetically, things can shift in your life. It can be amazing. So financial efficiencies are also plugging what we call cash flow leaks. So this is inefficiencies that we have, and there's four key areas. There's taxes. A lot of us are overpaying in our taxes. I'm not a tax professional. It's not my specialty, but it's just a general observation and well known in the financial industry. A lot of people don't have their finances set up. A client that I've known for a long time, she's actually, when I was like first haircut when I was a baby, she was our hairstylist and has been our hairstylist our entire life. She's a client. She, in all of her years of doing that, has never set up an LLC or been incorporated. She's always run it through her personal taxes for 35 or 40 years. It's like even just the self-employment tax, you could have saved by having like there's probably a ton of other deductions because there's 5,000 pages of business deductions in the IRS code where there's like 500 for the individual tax filer. You just have way more ways to be more tax efficient. So plugging cash flow leaks can be looking at your taxes, making sure you have things set up right, and sitting down with somebody that knows that. Um, that's what that looks like. There's insurance. A lot of times we're overpaying on our insurance. About a year, a little over a year ago, we redid ours and we made sure that we were raising our deductibles because we could afford to, and that lowered our monthly premium. Because with insurance, you know that there's the deductible and the monthly premium. The lower the deductible, the higher your monthly premium. The higher your deductible, the lower your monthly premium. So a way to improve cash flow, which is really the lifeblood of our household income and our business income, um, is doing that. So um, what we did was we did that, and then we also did an umbrella policy that saved us in all doing all that saved us about $2,000 a year in having like identical coverage on our vehicles and home and all that stuff. But it saved us money. That was money back in our pocket. So think about this, guys. If we save $2,000, that's saving it. What's the old adage? A penny saved is a penny earned, right? So if we save $2,000, what would it take for me to earn an extra $2,000 in my business or have my money working to where my investments are spinning off an additional $2,000 or in getting efficient with your money? If you can save money, that's equivalent to putting money to work and having it earn, a certain percentage. Like let's do the math. If I needed $2,000 extra and I earned 2% in some low end savings account, I would need, what would that be? Uh, $1 million? Am I doing the math on that right? Or 100,000? 100,000, right? 100,000. Yeah, 100,000. Um, would be what you need. Like that's a lot of money earning 2% to get you 2% of or $2,000 of savings. So if I can just save that money through taxes, insurances, like that's money in my pocket that I could put on paying off debt, getting out of debt a little quicker by not having to earn more money, not increase my money, but I'm just taking what's already flowing through my hands and getting more efficient with it, making those dollars go further. So those are a couple powerful things. And then the other couple are interest costs that we have and like fees on investments that often can erode our compounding over time. Jack Vogel, the founder of the Vanguard Group, he talks about how that um, we basically put up 100% of our money in the market and the government keeps a third from taxes, and then the other third goes to our fees to the advisor, typically. And those are ballpark numbers, of course, but you get the idea that a lot of the money that we put up, we don't have ultimate control over, and we ultimately won't see that because the fees that compound against us in those. So those are all things to take a look at to get more efficient. And then the last thing here at the financial efficiency level is we have an emergency fund. And then after we have an emergency fund, we want to have an opportunity fund. When an opportunity arises, a good deal on a house, I'll give you an example. My aunt recently got married for the very first time at, how old was she, honey? 63 at the time? I forget, something like that. She'd been single her whole life. Was over at my mom's yesterday, and it's my mom's sister's, my aunt. And she's like, yeah, Aunt Dee and her new husband Tim, they're buying a new condo. I'm like, oh, okay, cool. Yeah, it's one across the complex that they've had their eye on for a number of years. The lady was older. She recently passed away, and they were in a place to pounce on it. They paid cash, right? Had an opportunity fund. They had the opportunity to pounce on a good deal, right? And it could be a good deal on a car. Could be an opportunity comes up in your business and you want to do something that expands your business, like money moves or to upgrade or to go to a seminar or to hire a mentor, right? If we've got the money there to do it, boom, we can take it. And a lot of times, if we have the money to pounce on something, we can get a deal on it. How many times do you hear about somebody buying a house and because they could pull the trigger immediately, they were able to, get it lower than the asking price or something like that because the people were desperate to get out from underneath it or whatever, right? There's opportunities sometimes that can actually put money in our pocket. I know when we've been in cycles where money is tight, it almost works against you. If you don't have money, you can't take advantage of deals and you end up paying more. And that can be a kind of a negative cycle that often happens, right? So having that opportunity fund is key. So once we focused on financial safety, financial efficiency, then it comes to the wealth building stage, right? And this is where if we've been putting money away, we've got our income good to where there's excess on a monthly basis, maybe not every single month, but most months. We've built up our emergency fund. That's ballooned into our opportunity fund. And as we continue to, and like a lot of us here that are entrepreneur minded, we're growing our income. Maybe more income is going to be coming in, more streams of income are going to be coming in. Now it's like I've got all this money flowing, and I've been smart with how I've structured it with an emergency fund and an opportunity fund. Now it's like I've got this excess even above my emergency fund and above my opportunity fund. Now what do I do with it? Here we come at the investment stage, right? And this is a key thing is to learn your investor DNA. And we'll probably have some content on this and trainings on this as well. Because for some people, investing in the stock market is completely in alignment with them. Like that's perfect for them. I talk to some people, they invest in the stock market, but you can talk to them and their passion is actually real estate. But they don't feel like they should get into real estate because they've heard from the gurus or their brother-in-law that it's too risky and they shouldn't do it. So they're just doing something that's completely out of alignment and like almost sucking their soul dry because they're not doing what their investor DNA is designed them to do, right? So learning that about ourselves, like how should we invest? You can invest in your business. You can invest in yourself. You can go to a seminar, learn better sales and persuasion skills and increase your income fivefold, in the next year. You could do that, right? You could absolutely do that by investing in yourself. And then once you invest in yourself and you have the skill sets to elevate your income, then it's a whole different ballgame, right? Because if you can 2x your income or 5x your income over the next few years because you've gained the skill sets, you've invested in yourself, now there's a lot more cash flow to deal with. Now we're just having a totally different discussion, right? So we can invest in ourselves. It doesn't always have to be the stock market. It doesn't always have to be external to ourselves. It could be actually, I'm my greatest asset. If we think we are our greatest asset, let's pour money into ourselves, grow ourselves so that we're showing up as the greatest version that we are here to be to impact people in a positive way, right? So that's a powerful thing. So investor DNA is really step one when we're talking about building wealth is really knowing thyself at that level of how should I be investing? What's in alignment with me and where I want to go and who I am? Another aspect of building wealth is cash flow and understanding that's the lifeblood of anything that we're doing, whether it's business or on the personal side. And we've talked about becoming more efficient with cash flow and plugging those leaks. There's a lot more to get into about cash flow. If you're at the stage of life where you've got, maybe kids in middle school, high school, or even younger, college planning, that's an aspect of building wealth. And then obviously our retirement strategy. So that I help a lot of people with at the retirement level. A lot of people don't know if they have enough money set aside, don't know how much they need for retirement. They don't know their Social Security. They don't know if, is my investments actually going to produce enough income? Like I've got 100 grand, is that enough? Yep. Might be for some people, it might not be for others. You need to know those things. So those are all aspects of that. And once all these get dialed in, I'm going to breeze through these last ones because, probably a lot of us on this call aren't at this level, but this is the financial independence level where we've really mastered these bottom ones. Things are really flowing and we've got enough money flowing through our hands where we're just giving so much to Uncle Sam that we just really need to do something to figure out how can we keep some more of that money. And it's not that tax planning obviously should not happen down here. It obviously can if you have a business. We want to be doing tax planning and all that stuff, kind of along with all these other things. Again, these aren't like absolutes. Don't do this until you reach here. I mean, this is a dynamic process. But a lot of people don't necessarily need to worry so much about taxes until they're really, at a good place. And then estate planning and business succession planning is all things that, we'll get to all that stuff. And then legacy. Legacy is important because legacy can be part of, what we want to create, our passion, our purpose. And by legacy, I don't mean just monetary, like leaving our kids $1 million in a, Roth account. This is the person that we've become, who we've developed into, the lessons, the knowledge, the skills, the information that we've developed. We want to make sure that, we're imparting that on the generations that come after us. It can be financial as well. I think there's a big tragedy in America that there's this belief system that like, I'm going to spend all my money. My kids ain't getting anything. But the wealthy families do it the exact opposite. They build on each generation, right? And there's this saying that I've heard from Dr. McCullough, some others, that we build on the shoulder of giants, right? And I think back a lot of my ancestry, my mom's dad, my grandpa, and my great grandpa, my great great grandpa, they were all farmers. And my what would it be? Great 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 grandpa came from Germany in like the mid 1800s, and settled to, of all places, Michigan, bought a farm. And so my grandpa was a third generation farmer. And I look back, it's like, man, if they would have had any of this information, every generation could have been functioning, even in farming, at a higher level, at a different level. But they pretty much stayed the same because their thinking stayed the same, how they managed their money stayed the same. Nothing really shifted. If they had some of this information, they could have made some changes. And that's what the wealthy do, is the wealthy families, and whether you agree with what they do with their wealth, that's another discussion. But they have tried and true processes that build wealth generationally. And why not allow our kids to deal with higher level problems instead of having to figure out how to make money and get out of the paycheck to paycheck trap, right? Why not? Let's get above that. Let's evolve beyond that. That's the legacy component, that as we're figuring out, who am I? What do I want my life to look like? The legacy piece for many of you is going to be like, I know that I need to do something in that. I want to give my kids or my grandkids something substantial that I can pass on. And maybe it's monetary so that they can not go through the same challenges I'm going through. They can, not just be, handed a bunch of money. There's systems and processes that allow that not to happen. That's what the wealthy impart. But the impact can be, tremendous. So those are all kind of some aspects of that. So with that, that's just kind of a general framework, right? I call this the hierarchy of wealth consciousness, of just what order do we do things in, and why do we do them, and what impact does it have on, our emotional state and who we are and how we show up, and the impact that we're trying to make. There's a lot of reasons for that we have gone over, obviously. So those are just some high level things as we move along. Like I said, we're going to dive into more of these and talk more. Probably do a whole call about some of these individual things, and dive into emergency funds and opportunity funds, and efficiencies with cash flow leaks, and we'll impart a lot of the specific things on that. But tonight I just wanted to go over just high level, give you guys an understanding of like, no matter where you're at right now, if you've got specific questions, want to know like, okay, this is where I'm at. What should I do next? This is just a really good framework to follow. Absolutely not an absolute, but a good, just general framework. So, I think with the time we're at here, 9:15 here Eastern time, that's the presentation, but I will open it up if there's any of you, the guys that have anything from where we started the conversation tonight, inner work, anything related to, building wealth and the inner work, or, specific financial questions. I'll try to answer financial questions depending on what they are. Sometimes it's hard to do individualized stuff on a group call. I have to, kind of just give some general thoughts there, but wanted to make this call a little more interactive for the last part here before we get done. So if you guys have any questions, feel free to type it in the chat. Feel free to come off mute and share anything that you've got, and then we'll close out here in a few minutes. We want to do like we did a couple weeks ago, just do some embodiment practice real quick that'll just help take the things that you learned tonight, maybe some ahas, some cognitions you've had and just help integrate these things into the system and help kind of balance the nervous system so that you're just showing up kind of at a new set point moving forward. So um, with that, any questions? I see one here in the chat, trust account and LLC. So what's your specific question about those things exactly? Um, Now, I will say this question I do get, kind of generally a lot of people are like, oh, I want to do a trust. I want to, do all this stuff. A lot of people are thinking about that a little too far in advance. Like they're not ready for that yet to do trusts. Some people are, but a lot of people that I, get fielded that question on calls and stuff, um, they're just not really ready for it. They don't have financial safety. They don't have financial efficiencies, but they want to kind of jump all the way to the top and go, let's figure out a trust. So if you're ready for a trust, usually you have a lot of these other things in order. You've got good cash flow. You've probably got some good net worth. You've got, probably some money put away. And you're really at a place to where like I really need to have this trust in place for tax efficiencies and those types of things. So you might be at that level, but a lot of times we need to focus on some things to get to that level where it makes sense to be putting a trust in place because trusts, there's a lot of different types of trusts, and they sometimes need to be in place for where there's more wealth and income that we need to really take risk off the table, and there could be some misinformation out there about what trusts can do even on the tax side. Doesn't mean you're just going to like bring your tax bill down to zero because you've got a trust. Trusts still have a 37.5% tax rate on them. So there's still those things in place. A lot more of it's risk mitigation and things like that that we want to do. And as far as LLCs and incorporation, I mean, you obviously want to talk to like CPA or tax professional on those things or an attorney that sets those up because there's different situations where it makes sense to have an LLC, sometimes sole proprietorship, sometimes it makes sense to be an S corp, usually not C corp. That's usually bigger companies, but even then, depending on what's going on, it might make sense. So that's kind of outside my wheelhouse. That'd be just talk to somebody if you have a good local relationship for some of those things to get involved with that and get those questions answered that way. Um, so if no other questions coming in, I will,
Yeah,
let's just do oh, I hear
that
a
was
voice. Good.
yeah. That's George. No, I was just posting that because apparently in Canada it's kind of different from the states for all this.
Hmm. Yeah, some of it can be different. So, I mean, generally, a lot of the things are the same, at least from what we do a lot with, a lot of these strategies we went over tonight, where different tools that we use here in the States, they're very comparable in Canada. Certainly, there's going to be differences, especially at the trust and LLC level. I don't know a whole lot about Canada. I've got a couple colleagues up in Canada. I know a lot of what they talk about when we do some basic strategies here in the States. It's very similar up there, but when you get into this stuff, I'm sure there's a lot more differences on, laws and regulations and different things up there. Um, for you guys, I'm not super versed in that. I don't really deal. There's enough differences between the US and Canada. It's like I'm not going to try to learn both. I don't live in Canada, so I'd love to be more of a resource for that. If you do have specific questions, I can certainly connect you with one of my colleagues up there, and if you got any questions, he might be able to help you out with that. But
Okay, yeah, no thanks. Just since it's about a year I've been reading in to this stuff, so kind of learning late in life, but nice to learn.
absolutely, yep, that's
Okay,
fantastic.
thanks.
What kind of things have you been learning about and digging into?
Basically, if you open up a corporation under a number, you can set up your trust and LLC, and it's like a big circle that keeps everything in.
Okay,
So basically, when um, you're investing in yourself, you invest your company, and your house is part of it. It's all through investment. Like it's a big circle that stays in your circle, basically.
okay. Yeah, I don't, again, I'm not a trust specialist by any means. I do know some different people in the industry that do specialize more in that stuff, and some of that stuff, there's a gray area. So you just want to be careful with some of that stuff. I know Currently, there's a few pretty significant lawsuits and things. The government's gone after some people that are pushing some of that stuff. That is it totally illegal? I don't know, but we know the government doesn't like doing things that are, where people are, not paying taxes. They want their tax dollars. So, I just usually caution people with that kind of stuff. If there's a big promise of like saving a bunch of taxes and all that stuff, like tread carefully. I've been in this long enough and enough colleagues have seen this where people can get into a lot of trouble with it. So just be careful would be my recommendation. So not to say that it's not legit and it's not, things you should pursue, but I've just seen enough where people have gotten burned and people have been, they've gone to jail for it. So, and I know some of these people personally that they got hooked into the wrong kind of things. So, yeah, just be careful. Don't want to see have anything happen, but obviously want you to be, you know, saving on taxes. And I mean, the government has a tax code for a reason so that we can minimize our taxes. It was something that Judge Lernhan back in the early 1900s had said is that we have a patriotic duty to keep our taxes as low as possible. So we definitely want to be efficient with that and use the tax code to our advantage so that we're not tipping the government, right? We do plenty of that with everything else that we
Yeah,
do. So, all right, cool.
exactly. It wasn't about much of a taxes. It's how you can pay yourself as you're inside of
Okay,
a incorporated trust account.
okay, good.
Okay,
That's good.
thanks.
I just like to always caution on that. So I've seen enough for that, and it breaks my heart when I see anybody get hurt. So,
Oh
all
yeah, for
right,
sure.
well.
Learning and reading more.
Yep, good. Yep. Keep educating. There's plenty to learn. And I found that, when you go down one rabbit hole, it opens up many more, and then you're like, oh man, I got all this other stuff to learn now. So it can be kind of good
Exactly.
and bad, right? It's like, okay, thought I
Thanks.
thought I was getting to the end of my education, and now I realize I have a bunch more to go. So, which is good. It's the journey of
Yeah.
life. So, um,
Education never stops.
exactly. Yep, the journey never stops. So that's right. All right, cool. Well, any other questions? If not, we'll close this out. I'll do a quick, like I did a couple weeks ago, just like more of an embodiment exercise here, just kind of balance the nervous system a little bit with what we talked about. Um, if there's anything that came up during this call tonight that was, we were talking about the inner work, some things are like, oh yeah, that's an area that's really a big stumbling block for me. This, way of thinking, this mindset, this belief. Maybe I can't put words to it. Maybe it's just a feeling I have in my throat or my chest. Like I feel like I can't move forward very well with a lot of this stuff. I feel stuck. Think of that as we do this. If this is more, you're just like excited and like, yeah, this is the information I need. This is like I need to do more on the inner work, and I'm thankful to have like a framework to work on money and know what I should do in what order generally. And I can see exactly where I need to work. And now I'm like excited to tackle my debt or work on my income or, you know, get more efficient with my money, like whatever it is that you're excited about, focus on that with what we're going to do here, just to kind of integrate this into the nervous system. So it's going to work for both spectrums. If you're like, oh, there's something negative I need to clear, or like you're really excited, let's embody that. Let's like synchronize that into the subconscious with what we're going to do. So just tune in to what was an event a year and a half ago, and one of the guys that was there, he said, what feels alive to you right now? And that really resonated with me the way he said that. So whatever feels alive for you right now, something to heal and clear and get rid of, or something that's like, yes, I'm more motivated than ever. Let's knock this out. Focus on that for a minute and go into the body with that. Feel where you feel it in your body. You might feel it in your throat, your solar plexus, might feel it in your head, just wherever you feel it. If you can't feel it, that's okay. Don't have to feel it. Bringing some awareness to the body is really excellent for embodiment of these things and really getting the nervous system online. So with that, think about that for a minute. I need to find where I put my binder here. We're going to just go through a quick thing. Let's take a minute or two, and then we'll wrap up for the night. So really feel into that. And then I'm going to give you guys a couple things to think about here and do. Just be real easy, a couple breathing patterns, a couple thoughts of like an emotion and different things like that. All right. So I want you guys to think about, and if you're not religious, I'm going to say think of God. It could be source for you or how whatever you designate as that. Um, Thinking about, source creator God for you, thinking about God. We have a connection to God, obviously, or to source. Not to go down a big rabbit hole there. Um, the presence of God and how it shows up in our life, there's a power there, right? So we want to make sure that that power, there's a clear connection there. So we're going to talk about that or get into that a little bit here with this as we do that. It's coming up as the group energy of what you're thinking. So as you think of God, I also want you to tune into your body. Where do you guys feel it in your body? You don't need to put it in chat, just, to yourself. Where do you feel it? Does that shift now? When you think of God, focus on God or source, where do you feel it now in your body? Focus on that spot. It probably is going to be a different spot. It may not, maybe the same spot you felt. If it's two different spots, I want you to breathe between the two. So the first spot you felt when you take a breath in, breathe to that first spot. And when you breathe out, breathe the breath out to that second area you felt. And then reverse it. The second area you felt, breathe into that, and then exhale to the original spot you felt. And if it's the same spot, just breathe in and out to that spot. And this is something that Dr. Sue calls building the circuitry. If any of you still have your eyes open, you can go ahead and close your eyes for a second. And just do like a slow rhythmic breathing pattern with that, in and out to both spots that you felt it. Do this for another 10 or 20 seconds. Just keep breathing between those 2 points. All right, good. So you guys can relax, open up your eyes. So go back to thinking God for a second. See if that feels any different to you in your body. Likely will. And then what was feeling alive for you that you wanted to work on in this balancing session here first came up? It was maybe something that stirred in you or something that excited you. Does that feel different to you now? If it was something really positive, does it feel more believable, more grounded, more like this is now a full part of me? If it was something that was maybe a little more, like I needed to heal something, let something go, limiting belief, a fear, does the weight of that feel less? Does it feel like, it's somewhat gone? May not be all the way gone, but it's less intense. If it is for any of these, feel free to chime in the chat. Let me know if you guys are feeling a difference with this. Feeling lighter, feeling just more grounded, more centered, more calm. That's what we're looking to accomplish here. So if you have any feedback, put that in the chat. Calm. Absolutely. Thanks, honey. Cool. So with that, that concludes tonight what we want to share tonight. So thanks for being on, guys. Less for me, certainly have to do it again. Yep, absolutely. This isn't a one-off. We can't, I wish we had a magic wand and just, like abracadabra, we're all perfect, abundant, healthy. It is a process. It is a journey, of course. But yeah, thanks for joining me tonight, guys, or joining us tonight. If you have any specific things that come up, questions, feel free to use the school group. Make a post in there, tag us in it. If there's anything that came up you want advice on, you can always message us privately. If you need any help with any of this stuff individually, I think you can find some of our information on there if you want to, schedule a one-on-one call to talk about any of this stuff, specifically to finances or inner work, we can do that. I do have a request, not a demand. If you guys wouldn't mind going on to the school group and just sharing your feedback, your thoughts on tonight, what you learned, what your takeaways were, anything you want to hear in the future, ways we can improve, could be some constructive criticism as well. We just want to make sure that as we show up every other week on these calls, the second Wednesday doing more of a wealth energetic inner work call, and then the fourth Wednesday being a little more financially related. We want to make sure that we're meeting your needs and, making an impact where you guys need it. And, if you have questions, concerns, anything like that, we want to make sure that we're, showing up and honoring that and all that. So with that, have a great night, guys. And we'll see you guys here in a couple weeks and we'll interact with you in the school group as questions and things come up. So thanks for being on and we'll talk to you guys soon.
Again, have a great night.